So my name is Barry Cranford. I'm the founder, organizer of the community along with Chelsea. So we run a tech recruitment company. So we place generally software engineers, senior software engineers, but to be honest, all across tech. We've built teams for companies like BBC, eBay, Nutmeg, Visa. So some big names, but also startups and scale-ups all across London and the UK. So if anyone's building teams or has clients that are building teams, please let us know. Other than that, thanks for being here. Chelsea's going to share a document very soon that will enable you to put your LinkedIn details on there so you can connect with everyone that's on the call afterwards. Obviously, a massive part of this is networking. And without further ado, I'll hand over to Andrew for today's session.
Okay, thanks very much, Barry, and nice to meet everyone. So skilled volunteering benefit for fractionals is the eye-catching topic today to kick us off. Tiny little bit about me. I've worked in tech, I've worked in IT for 25 years. The last 10 years of that, I've been self-employed. Prior to that, I worked for some of the big tech companies. And about half of my career, I've worked in project management, program management. And the previous half, it was various different sort of customer facing and commercial roles. So that's my background. I'm only going to talk about a couple of different organizations because those are the only ones I've actually volunteered through. There are lots, but I don't really know much detail about some of the other Tech for Good voluntary organizations. And please don't be scared off by the name Scottish Tech Army. I'll give you the background shortly, but this organization has volunteers not just from around the UK, but in fact around the world, and supports charities throughout the UK, all parts of the UK. I'd also, just to sort of kick things off, say, you know, the fractional community is made up of very experienced people, some of them C-level, but I would actually position that no matter what your discipline, what your functional specialism is, I strongly believe that you can volunteer and gain enormously from it. So without further ado, I will kick off. If at any stage anybody's got a question, feel free to put it in the chat. Chelsea's going to help moderate the chat. Or if it's better for you, just bring yourself off mute and shout out a question at me. I don't mind being interrupted. Okay, so could I just get a thumbs up that that slide has actually advanced? It now says set the scene. Yep, good. So I've been volunteering in this Tech for Good organization for 4 years. Actually, I started on the day that it was founded, which was just over 4 years ago. And I joined FCC just a couple of months back. There's a chap called Joe Cross, who's the volunteer experience officer for Scottish Tech Army. I hope he's going to join the call. He's actually overrunning on a previous session. You know, big opening comment really is there are a lot of different benefits that you can get from skilled volunteering. You get a lot of value by giving a great deal of value to the organizations. Now, I've been asked by a couple of senior people in the organization, including the CEO, to see if I could find some additional experienced volunteers to help the delivery and help the cadence in the organization. And you know, by lucky coincidence, really, I'd recently joined FCC, and Chelsea was up for me having this slot. So yeah, this could be the start. This talk could be the start, or could be a springboard for you getting involved in volunteering and reaping some of the benefits. So in terms of background, April 2020, we were in the depths of COVID and the first lockdown, and a couple of Edinburgh-based tech entrepreneurs had this bright idea, as entrepreneurs tend to. And they thought, well, you know, the world and the UK is in chaos. Lots of organizations, small organizations, particularly charity, third sector, and perhaps some public sector, are going to really, really struggle with delivery because they don't have a digital model, perhaps, or they need to change their digital model to keep on delivering, and they won't know how to do it, won't have the money, won't have the people. So there was a sort of a demand side. And on the supply side, their hope was that lots of people would be available and would step forward. All the, you know, whole spectrum from retired people to new grads to people like me who was on a gap in contracts and people on furlough. So they launched it as a not-for-profit organization, and over 100 people joined on the first day, including me. So far, there's been about 3,500 volunteers joined. Now, obviously, not all of them are active at any one point in time. You know, that's a cumulative figure. Probably about 1,100, certainly over 1,000 people have been actively involved in supporting over 400 charities with tech problems, tech projects. Then we got to about January 2021, and it was felt that the model had been proven, that there was an ongoing demand and an ongoing supply. So the STA was matured into more of a sort of enduring organization with a funding model, and a core operations team of 5 people was set up at that time. I'm not one of those 5 people. I didn't join the organization as an employee. I've just remained as a volunteer. And then the next stage of development, April 2022, just a couple of years ago, a separate initiative was launched, which I'll talk a wee bit about, which is the logo at bottom right, the Tech for Good Alliance. And that was launched, targeted at corporates and their CSR programs. So if you've worked for any big corporates, you might have had, you know, an allowance of 2 volunteering days a year. You can't do a lot with 2 days, really, can you? So people, you know, go to a local children's home or whatever and do some painting or take shopping carts out of canals or whatever, which is all very great. But wouldn't it be better if those 2 days per year in all those organizations could be aggregated and people could actually use their skills? So that's the background. That's the story so far. And really the meat of what I wanted to talk about is this weird speech bubble slide, what I created. There are many benefits, and I think it really does suit a fractional approach. I'm not going to talk to all of them. I'm going to talk to 3 or 4. I'm going to start top left. So there is opportunities to join as a volunteer and lead a project to deliver something to help a charity with a tech problem, whatever that may be. That would boost your PM and your tech skills, but that doesn't necessarily need to be very hands-on. It could be more consultative. So one could be, as a volunteer, a member of a project team of volunteers and be the wise owl available for help and advice if that team gets stuck on any points. Going to go bottom left next. What we found a lot of is senior people in tech have tended very often to get promoted into management positions, strategic positions, team management positions, which is all well and good, but it's maybe taken you away from the coalface, what you want to do most, where your DNA is, and you also might feel that your tech skills are a little bit out of date. And this is a great opportunity to just get hands-on with some cool new tech, not necessarily in a project, but it could be as part of a project team. Mentoring, top right. So that quote's actually my quote. I did a video for International Mentoring Day, which was 2 or 3 months ago, which the STA put out. So when I joined the organization, I didn't join with the intention of doing mentoring. I joined with the intention of leading projects, and I did lead a number of projects. But just through interacting in the community and networking, I came across lots of people who were maybe new grads or just come out of coding boot camps and were stuck because the job market was broken along with everything else in COVID, and they needed help and support. So I started just kind of naturally mentoring some people, and also career changes, people who've changed direction into tech. And I discovered that I seem to be quite good at it, but I also discovered I really, really enjoy doing it. And that's now pretty much my main involvement with the Scottish Tech Army. Also in the middle at the bottom, knowledge shares, run a session or attend a session. Sessions like this, the STA run quite often. Earlier in the year and back end of last year, they did quite an extended series of sessions on accessibility for people with various special needs, and how to really bake that into solutions. That was very, very popular and very, very informative. And yeah, last one I'm going to say is mental health, being purposeful. It was certainly a big help to me during the dark days of COVID, and I know it's been very helpful to lots of other people. So I haven't got loads of slides here, even though there's 15 slides. You might be able to see little icons of them on the left-hand side. Most of those are appendices, which I might only open up based on Q&A. I'll pause now for any questions, and then I was going to go to the STA website and just show you where some of the resources and where some of the further information is. But I think I'll mute myself now, and please shout out any questions. And I'll see what's in the chat if I can open that. Networking document from Chelsea. So anybody got any questions on what I've talked about so far? Or would you like to have a little bit more detail on what it's all about first?
Sorry, not sure if you're going to cover that. We're interested in more learning about an example of a project or an initiative that you had been involved in, just an example of what it looks
Sure.
like, and
Sure.
that'd be great if you're going to
Okay.
cover. Nice, yeah.
So there's lots of examples, case studies, and some videos on the website. If your question was specific to what projects I've led, I'll tell you about the first one that I led. It was one of the first of the larger projects. Kicked off probably about May in 2020. There was an organisation in the Aberdeenshire area called VSA, Voluntary Services Aberdeen, who had various care homes, had about 150 staff who visited care homes, people in their own homes, and they had a massive issue with PPE because they actually couldn't fulfill their obligations to safety of their staff unless their staff had the correct PPE, and nor could they continue to deliver service to their client group. And they had no means of tracking who had the PPE, where it was, forward demand what they needed. So the charity logged a request on the STA website. I'll show you in a minute how that works. And they said, we've got a problem, can you help? And they just sketched out what their problem statement was. And we, in terms of the organization, the STA, do an initial triage on all requests coming in, maybe have a couple of conversations with the charity, and then it's either thumbs up, yes, that's something we can work with, and we'll form a team of volunteers, or in other cases, maybe, sorry, that's just not something we can do, and we signpost them elsewhere. So next thing that happened, I kind of like put my hand up to be the project manager on it. We formed a team of volunteers, which included an individual from VSA who also volunteered in the Scottish Tech Army. And we delivered a solution to live within 7 weeks, which was, I think, pretty cool, bearing in mind we were all working independently from our own homes. None of us knew each other. And we did all of that in a sort of cloud native, virtual by default environment. Now, to clarify, we didn't build from scratch. That would have been impossible. So what we did is we spoke to the charity in real detail, got a detailed understanding of their requirements, Moscowed them, normal process. And we looked in the market. We had a very experienced technical architect in the group and identified some potential solutions that could meet this need. We chose one, agreed with the charity that that was the way we were going to go. And then the rest of the effort was configuring it, testing it, and training the staff and launching it to the organization. And it was very, very successful. It fulfilled their need. So that's an example of one that I was involved in. The type of requests and the type of solutions varies, and the type of charities varies enormously. It can be from something as simple as, we don't know how to do X, Y, Z thing, and a volunteer with the correct skill set and experience might just be able to talk them through it, and it's solved within a day, down to perhaps a get well plan on a website or a new website, right up to some very, very, very much more fully functioned and complex solutions involving multiple organizations, multiple parties, and working more in an ecosystem way through the Tech for Good Alliance. So Chandri, does that answer your question up to a point?
Absolutely. Thank you for that.
Okay. Anybody else got a question at this point, or shall I flick across to the website?
There's a question in the chat, Andrew.
What have we got in the chat? Let's have a look. So, tech and ops support exclusively, yes. However, I'll caveat that with almost everything that the STA does in terms of delivery is delivered through volunteers. The small operations team really just coordinate various aspects. So there are marketing activities required. There's digital marketing, there's social media, there's comms, there's PR. So that needs to be delivered for the STA as an entity, and it would be great to have people with those skill sets come on board and assist. I would also say that should a charity contact the STA and say, we need some help with our marketing strategy or our social media presence, then that could well be a project with a charity that that Melissa, with a marketing and comms background, you could get involved in. What I'd be happy to do, Melissa, if you wanted to explore those sort of avenues further, is I could just put you directly in touch with somebody from the STA who has responsibility for those marketing and comms aspects, and you could just chat it through one-to-one.
Sorry, I'm not sure if my microphone works, but thank you.
It does,
Can
yes.
you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yep. funnily enough, one of the volunteers, one of the individuals who's been heavily involved in the marketing and comms side, is based in Munich, just to give a non-Scottish presence to things. Yeah. Okay. Shout out if there's any more questions. Otherwise, I'm going to open up the website, just give you an orientation of that. I'm going to stop share and then reshare. Otherwise, I'll probably muck this up. Where is it now? I'm going to muck it up. I can't see it on my screen now. Oh, there we go. Hopefully. Can you see a web page trying to open? Yes.
Right. We can see the Scottish Tech Army one.
Okay, so hopefully that's now the front page of the website. Yeah. I'm not going to click you all the way through it. There's a simple how it works, which is more details for what the model is, what the information relevant to volunteers and information relevant to charities. And within that charity box is the call to action button to log a project request. Now, something else I should say, if any of you on the call have an involvement in a charity, you might be a trustee, you might be a volunteer in a charity. If you're aware of a tech problem, and you're looking for help, you're looking for advice or somebody to resolve or build something with you, then just log a request. Yeah. Our work that goes through some overview of projects, what the Tech for Good Alliance is all about. To Chandri, two of the bigger projects are Soundscape and Dress Code, which are detailed here. They are more complex and longer term and have involved more parties. And then there's case studies there. Our solutions really just has some, I wouldn't say templated offerings, but covers off what some of the common areas are that the organization gets involved in. Do lots of WordPress work. STA has its own AWS environment and a few other environments. Should anything need to be sandboxed in AWS or built in AWS, then that infrastructure is already in place. Tools that are used within the organization. Like I say, it was bootstrapped as an organization. It was started with virtually no budget. So most of the tools at launch were free tools, cloud native. So we started with Jira, with Slack, with Zoom. Over time, that's grown with a footprint, as I say, with AWS, some simple ERP stuff, Notion, HubSpot, that sort of tool set. About us, the team button has the bios of the founders and also the small ops team. There are 4 or 5 ambassadors who give advice and guidance and presence in various organizations, for instance, in higher and further education. And then news, blog, newsletter, and the summit material from the last 2 Tech for Good summits. A wee side story, I posted the details of the last Tech for Good summit in one of the FCC channels, and one of the FCC consultants, at least one, joined, a guy called Seb Ovid. He joined the virtual conference, and he was so enthused that he signed up with STA same day, and he's already working on one of the projects, which funnily enough is Soundscape. So does that help to position what this is about and how it works at a practical level? Up in the top right, there's a volunteer button, which I didn't talk about because it was hidden by the Zoom pane. So that's the call to action. If you click on that, it'll ask you for just a few basic details. That will then guide you through to joining the STA Slack environment. So very quick, very easy. Should you then wish to work on a project, there is a very quick and slick background check done, which is just because some of the charities that the volunteers work on, you know, there needs to be that that degree of diligence. Yeah.
Andrew, we have another question from Harriet. She says it's really handy to know about for some not-for-profits that she deals with, but she wanted to check, do they need to be based in Scotland to apply?
No, charities nationwide. Yep. Can apply, do apply, and if I can find it somewhere on here, there's a map. Which has a distribution of the projects that have been delivered. I think that, yeah, probably not very easy to see. So there is a bias towards Scotland. I think really that's only because that's where the organisation was founded. But those pinpricks show the distribution of charities that have been helped and supported, and the colour coding shows sectors. Now that map is actually a little bit of a work in progress. Eagle-eyed amongst you will remember I said over 400 charities have been supported, and those numbers don't add up to 400. But that map is being built out and linked into a back-end database by some volunteers as we speak. So volunteers from around the world, multiple time zones. In the first year, I was working with a guy in Singapore who was an expat Scot. He was locked down in Singapore, and yeah, we did some great stuff together. But charities-wise, it is just UK. We don't cover anything in mainland Europe.
We have another question, Andrew, if you don't mind me just quickly jumping in. James says from the STA LinkedIn page, there are a regular series of events and tech talks. Are external speakers welcome to present at those? Not commercially, of course.
I would say yes. Sorry, I'm sounding hesitant, so I'm going to scrub that and I'm going to start again. With a more positive, yes, of course, external speakers could present. That would need to be agreed with, you know, the people who are pulling together those series of talks. I mentioned earlier the accessibility and disability series of talks that have been run. Those were run by and presented by people from you know, all sorts of specialist spheres. Now, they may have also been STA volunteers, or they may not have been. But my only caveat is just like the FCC community, the simplest way of finding out what's going on and interacting is volunteer and join the Slack community. That doesn't commit you to doing anything at all, but it just puts you in a collaboration space in with the rest of the community.
Thanks, Andrew. That's very helpful.
It also, for instance, another benefit, it would give you access to, there's a volunteer app available on iOS and Android, which has a real-time list of all the projects that are looking for volunteers. So that's a very simple way, an effective way of seeing what's available and registering your interest. But we don't make that app available out with the community because I think that would just become a bit unmanageable. What other questions? Anything else on the website? Otherwise, I'll close it down and I'll just flick back to my slides. I'll flick back to the slides.
Hi, Andrew.
Hello.
Yeah, just if you can talk more around the platform itself, the Amazon Web Service.
Okay, so STA has an AWS instance. I think I've got that terminology right. We do host some services for some charities on a cost recovery basis. Yeah. The service itself, the AWS service itself, is run on a shoestring, and we get benefits of some credits which are available for running things for charities. I would say I don't actually know the number or the percentage, but I would say the number of charities who have things hosted by STA's cloud environment is quite a small proportion. However, some of the project teams will use AWS as an environment to build and prove a solution before it gets deployed to a charity. Yeah, if that makes sense. Yeah. There is also a very small platform team within the STA, which probably is that bottom left bubble there, hands-on with the tech. So, environments, software, platforms that the STA owns and operates need to be maintained. And if a volunteer either had a huge amount of knowledge in AWS or very little knowledge about AWS but wanted to learn more about it, then that would be a really good place to start. We have also delivered some services for clients in Azure, but we don't have our own Azure environment.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. When Barry was doing the intro and asking some people some questions, somebody said, curious to know how to volunteer in between build assignments, which is a really good question. It's what I've got there in the bottom right bubble. So I've been self-employed for over 10 years, and at the moment I only work part-time on a sort of fractional portfolio basis. I found the STA really, really good in terms of peaks and troughs. There have been times when I've been in contract, it's been absolutely full on, and all I'll ever do is just periodically check STA Slack, maybe answer a few questions, and then there's a gap in the contracts, and I maybe get more actively involved. The point about this, I think, is it's volunteering on your own terms. Joining through the website and joining the Slack community commits you to nothing. It just gives you access to people and information. Depending on every volunteer's skill set, they may be able to deliver a huge amount of value with a very small amount of time commitment, or they may be able to gain a huge amount of benefit through interacting with other members of the community. So it's, you know, it's just really flexible. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to, I think I've only got another slide or two. Now I've lost my mouse, presenter's nightmare. There we go. So the websites, I think well, we're recording this, but I think we'll probably publish the slides afterwards as well, if you agree, Chelsea, and everybody's got the link. I only showed you the first of those two websites. Call to action. So if you think, right, I'm in, dead easy, go to the website. It's the button top right to volunteer, and then you're in the STA Slack space. You all know how to use Slack because you use it in FCC. If, on the other hand, you want more information first, you know, follow the organization on LinkedIn. You'll see the announcements and information on talks and breaking news. Please use Chelsea's Google Doc, and I think you can flag on that whether you want a one-to-one with me or with any other member of the team. But, you know, specifically perhaps Melissa, marketing and comms. I could tee you up with probably Kirsty, who's got the best insight into that. Just peruse the STA website for more information. Have a look at case studies, videos there. The recorded sessions from the Tech for Good Summit. There's some tremendous material in there. Or you can DM me on the FCC Slack. And, you know, that kind of sign off at the bottom. It's about volunteering on your own terms with the amount of time that you want to commit. That's just what it is. Potentially, the more you put in, the more benefit you get. And certainly in my case, the benefits that I got, some of them were very, very unexpected, like mentoring, like delivering knowledge shares. I do quite a lot of that. And even some quite bizarre things within the community, like we had believe it or not, we've had a virtual Burns supper. I formed a band on STA. A lot of this stuff was being bored during lockdown, but yeah, you know, it's network, it's community, and it can be a lot of fun. Yep.
Andrew, we've been asked if you could share a bit more about the mentoring you have done.
Okay, so in Scotland, there's an organisation called Code Clan. It's a boot camp, and there are lots of different versions of that around the UK. So February 2020, we went into lockdown. April 2020, this organisation was formed, and a lot of people joined from Code Clan, and they were in a really tough place. Most of them had spent quite a lot of money on those courses, and there was no recruitment happening. And these were people with good tech skills, but in most cases, very limited experience. And some of them were in a really tough place. Now, some of those individuals just took an approach of, I'll put my hands up for everything. You know, I'll just get involved. It's not in my skill set, but I'll just get involved. Not necessarily because they were extroverts. In fact, two of the people I can think of were anything but extroverts, but they just got involved. And the more they got involved, the more people they met. I met a couple of those people, and I thought, right, well, you know, we could have some one-to-ones, and I could really, you know, give them some support and advice. One of those individuals got her first full-time, well, it wasn't full-time, it was a 3-month contract, but she got her first paid position in tech because I introduced her to somebody that I knew who was looking for somebody like her. I'm not a recruitment agency, but I am well networked, and I do refer people on. There are another 3 people who I met through the STA who got their role because I introduced them to an organization or to somebody that I knew. So that I think is a bit of an acute measure. What I do is I meet online, sometimes meet face to face for a coffee with individuals who either reach out to me direct or they speak to somebody else in the community and say, I'm really struggling with X, Y, and Z, and they might be referred towards me. Or they're volunteers that I just interact with. And I think, wow, you know, quality person, they've got some decisions to make or some challenges ahead. And through my sort of knowledge and experience, I can probably help them with that. So, yeah, that's what mentoring has been to me. I find it hugely satisfying. So much so that, and I'll put this in FCC in a few months, I took a lot of feedback from people in the STA that I mentor and also some former colleagues. And I've decided to launch a consultancy, sort of one-to-one commercial service of career mentoring. I'm co-creating that at the moment with a couple of ex-colleagues. And when that's ready, I'll put it in the requisite channel in FCC. I'm not going to buy a Lamborghini by doing that, but I have a feeling that there's a market there, and I think I'm quite good at doing it. But I won't stop doing it on a voluntary basis, particularly for volunteers in the STA who are putting a lot in. Then this would be perhaps one of the benefits that they'd get. I'm not sure who asked that question, but was that helpful as a reply?
Yeah, that was me. Yeah, it's just when you had it on the slide and you'd said a couple of times like it wasn't necessarily what you'd gone in to do, but it was surprising and it was a positive. So just curious to know a little bit more around like what that looked and how it worked.
Yeah.
Yeah, really good.
If the simplest way to find it, if you follow the STA as an organization on LinkedIn and go to posts, a few months ago, you'll see a video from me for International Mentoring Day. Although probably the last thing at the moment you want is to listen to me droning on anymore. But it's about a 4-minute video and it's just about my views on mentoring and how I got involved in it. So what else have we got in chat? Networking documents. Okay, I don't think there's any other questions in chat. That's my final slide, apart from some appendices. I'll just voice over on the appendices. One of the larger projects and a really, really fascinating case study is something called Soundscape, which is a navigation tool for blind people. And it was created as a research project by Microsoft a number of years ago and was launched as an alpha service and had, I think, about 8,000 users around the world who really, really relied on it. And Microsoft put out an announcement that they were going to withdraw it. They no longer felt that it could be sustained and they couldn't work out how to commercialize it. A lady called Kirsty McIntosh, who I've referenced before, she's one of the ops team in STA. She happens to be a chairperson of a charity for the blind. She became aware of this and she thought, wow, surely that's something we could do something. So she's a very extrovert person. She went straight to the the right individual in Microsoft, head of CSO or whatever, and says, well, you know, is there anything we can do here? So the code was available open source, but there was only about, I think about 5 months to work on it to basically relaunch the service and keep continuity of service for that community of blind users. So the next thing that happened was with PwC, who are a member of the Tech for Good Alliance, and they had a sort of volunteer day coming up, and working with the STA, they worked just for a day on this open source code for Soundscape to do a proof of concept. Can we actually turn this into a new service that can be sustained and run? And the conclusion of that day was, yeah, you know, it's going to be a tough challenge, but there's no massive barriers to doing it. What happened next was a team of volunteers primarily, but also working with 4 or 5 different organizations who support partially sighted and blind people, to pull together as a team to get this built, get the back end done, come up with a sustainable funding model to cover the costs, come up with a maintenance model so that, you know, it wouldn't just be launched and then not be sustainable. And they did it. They launched it to that community. There's a couple of slides later on in the appendices just with some facts and figures on that. So that's quite a unique example. I think it's a brilliant example of the ecosystem in action. And the FCC consultant Seb Ovid, who I mentioned earlier, who joined the Tech for Good Summit, he's now working on Soundscape because the initial service from Microsoft had only ever been available on iOS, and we're trying now to get it built out on Android as well. So that's in the appendices. There's some facts and figures on the Tech for Good ecosystem in the UK, and there's a couple of slides on basically membership of the Tech for Good Alliance. So let's have another look at chat. I think most people saying they're having to drop off shortly, or they've already dropped off. I'm happy to stay on longer, happy to take any more questions. Otherwise, it's kind of back to the what do you want to do next, and the call to action. I can get it to go back a slide. Any final questions? Hoping that's been useful and informative, maybe even inspiring, who knows? If there's...
I'll say thank you very much. This has been very helpful, and especially just in terms of thinking beyond. I've been focusing primarily on pre-seed and seed startup companies. And it's funny because I started off as I've done a lot of grant writing, and I've been on the board of directors for a few different nonprofit organizations. And it's so funny, I can, I think I say for myself, but I think all of us, we can get stuck in these reality tunnels of just fixating on the market that you're after. And then just realizing that so much more experience, so much more opportunity is there, and these nonprofit type of opportunities, they really need that. Yeah. And so it really is a mutually beneficial approach to offer that service, and then to scale and to be able to contribute in a completely different approach, more of a altruistic kind of mentality, which really is the best way to go forward. So Very cool. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mike. If you do join up, I'd recommend you ping through the STA Slack Alistair Forbes, who's the founder and CEO, tech entrepreneur, really, really good guy. I think, in terms of what you're doing fractionally, you'd also find a conversation with Alistair really enlightening. Couple of other points back to all of you. In the Tech for Good Summit presentations, if you want to just look at a couple of talks, there's one by Fuzzier Fan and one by Mike Ashworth, and they're talking about the big picture of philanthropy, of the charitable sector, and of what charities really, really need, and the big challenges that they face. I personally found those sessions fascinating, quite surprising, and really inspiring. So they're available through the website. You don't have to join to get onto the website and look at those. They're available. Yep. Okay. Any more for any more? Otherwise, we'll give you the gift of 5 minutes back in your calendars.
Just wanted to thank you, Andrew. It was like very inspiring, and I've already signed up. So
oh, good man. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I'll have my next interaction with you through the STA then. I'll make sure I message you.
Yeah, I've also signed up and I sent you a message now.
Fantastic.
LinkedIn. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Okay. Keep in touch, everyone, either through STA or through FCC, doesn't matter which. And look forward to some further conversations with you. Okay.
Thank you everyone for attending, and thank you, Andrew, for hosting this session. If anyone is interested in hosting a lunch club, then please do let me know. And we really want to get more discussion-based events and more networking events in for the FCC. So if anybody would like to host one, you can choose a topic and then help steer the conversation around the topic. Please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. Bye.